there was a new Star Trek short trek that came out called Children of Mars. We want to talk about this briefly. This is going to be a spoiler, kind of a spoiler-filled conversation, just because I want to talk about how it ties into Picard and also the Countdown comic as well. This is relevant probably to both. And there's no way to really recap this short trek because it's a very short story without basically putting out spoilers. So you've been warned. I think if you can still watch it even after we discuss it, you'll still watch it and enjoy it because it's very well produced. So Children of Mars, new short trek that came out. You can watch it on CBS All Access. If you don't have CBS All Access, I'm going to recap it for you so you know what you need to have probably picked up. So as Eric mentioned, we are reviewing the Countdown comic that's being published by IDW, which is the lead-in for Picard. And this actually ties pretty much directly into Countdown comic and obviously Picard. The way that it ties in is we follow these two young girls as they're going to school. And I'm not exact. I think that they're going to school on Earth, but I'm not quite sure. I think it's Earth, but I'm a little vague on that. But both of these two young girls, they're actually having communications, visual communications with their parents. The red-haired girl there, her father actually works as some kind of inspector on a Mars orbital station, and then the alien girl right there, her mom actually works at the Utopia Planitia shipping yards where they build all the starships. Now we know from reading Countdown, and if you haven't, you can watch some of our previous episodes. But from Countdown, we know that Geordi LaForge is at Utopia Planitia and is overseeing the building of all these rescue ships that they're going to use to basically ferry the Romulan people from their planets to a safe zone of some kind or to another planet where they'll be safe within the Romulan Star Empire because their planet's going nova as depicted in, again, the J.J. Abrams, the first of the Kelvin Star Trek movies. Well, we see the children talking to their parents, and then we see the two kids. There's a rivalry between them. One of them's a bit of a bully, and they keep going back and forth at each other. And it's almost kind of like a music video, and it's set to a cover of We Can Be Heroes. And it's really well produced. Of all the short treks I've seen, and I mean all of them, this is the best short trek I think I've seen. It's very well produced. And it's interesting to see kind of like life in the Federation, kind of outside of sort of serving in Starfleet. Like a school, their headmaster's a Vulcan. It's really interesting. But these two girls, they end up having basically like a schoolyard, like near the locker room hall fight, like you see in school. And they seem to really kind of hate each other. And they're being kind of punished towards the end of this short trek. And they're kind of staring away from each other. And then there's an attack that takes place. And all these screens start showing this attack that's happening actually on Mars. So they actually attack the Mars orbital station and destroy it. And they're attacking the Utopia Planitia shipping yards, and you can see the ships being destroyed. Now, Eric, it is those triangular-shaped ships that we've been discussing that you were thinking were Romulan. And some of the images from this Children of Mars short trek are the ones that are in the trailer, where you see them kind of, they're like flying down, like it looks like a space station or something, and they're attacking and blowing it up. That was all in this short trek. So it makes me fearful, one, about Geordi, because if the comic is canon, Geordi might have died during this story. Because it seems as though the Federation has no way to defend against whatever this is that's attacking. They don't tell us what it is. We don't know if it's Romulans. It doesn't make sense to me that it would be Romulans, though, because they're building these ships to basically get the Romulans, off of their planets and escort them to safety. And then towards the end of it, we see an image of Picard. It's kind of like a news thing, where they comment on, they have those military commanders and they're commenting, on what's happening, and he's quoted as saying it's, the attack is devastating, and it's just a very brief thing with him that kind of ties into this. But the image we see of Picard, where it looks like he's in 10 forward, and we see that planet with all the explosions. You and I had speculated that might have been the planet in the Countdown comic, where the Romulans have this group of indigenous people that they basically enslaved. Well, that's actually Mars, according to this short trek. And all those explosions are the attack that's happening on Mars. So in the midst of the Federation essentially trying to mount a rescue mission to help out the Romulans, someone actually attacks the Federation and basically takes out Mars, destroys all the transport ships that they're going to use. It's pretty much a one-sided, devastating, we'll use the term here, devastating thing that happens. So it ties directly into the Countdown comic, but it also obviously is going to tie into Picard. But like I said, it was very well produced. It was a little shocking to see the Federation get hit like that, and it seemed like they had no way to counter it. Because you think at the Utopia Planitia shipyards, they maybe even have Federation starships that are, kind of out of dry dock, that are maybe going through trial runs that could have actually helped, mount a defense of some kind. But it looks like they pretty much just get wiped out. So, yeah, so that's my review of Children of Mars, and the way that I think obviously it ties into everything. And then Eric, I know you said you hadn't had a chance to see this, unfortunately, but you said you were aware of some of the spoilers that you'd heard for Children of Mars. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I was really surprised to find out that this is sort of a prequel to Picard. When I first saw the trailer for this particular short trek, I was like, oh God, I was just like, what is this? And then I read an article about it, a spoiler-filled article of it, and I was like intrigued. I was like, okay, I'm looking forward to seeing this when I do get my, because I'll be doing that pretty soon. I'll be getting my account for CBS All Access, because I do plan to watch Picard. We plan to review it here on the show. And I'm a big spoiler guy. I go out, I find spoilers without even wanting to. I was just looking at a Children of Mars review, and it happened to have all the spoilers in it. You touched on one of the big things that I noticed nobody else is really talking about, which is that in relation to the Countdown comics, which seem to be probably around the same era as this attack, according to the Countdown comics, Geordi is at the shipyards when they're attacked.
Right.
So we may get something in the last issue of Countdown that relates more to this, but it would be really interesting. I don't know if they're going to go there, but it would be really, it's hard for me to imagine that they would kill Geordi LaForge off screen. That basically, that's just going to be something that Picard references. But it could be a big explanation for why Picard is in the state that he's in. If Geordi was killed at the shipyards, Picard may feel responsible in some way for not doing more to protect him or whatever, Now, the other thing that was interesting is the spoiler that I read said they did identify the attackers.
Huh.
And they identified the attackers in this little news broadcast, which is the thing that we're sharing here. And supposedly they were rogue synths. You don't remember hearing that term?
Yes, I see synths, attack, whatever, but I didn't. I'll be honest with you. It's that part of this short trek is so subtle. It completely escaped me. So you said it was rogue synths?
Rogue synths. So we assume that means
synthoids. So that makes me wonder if that goes back to that. Remember, we saw that look like a factory where they were producing those Sung style androids. I'm assuming those would be synthoids then, right?
Yeah, that's my assumption. So my assumption is that those triangle ships are in fact, now they could still be Romulan, by the way, and here's the reason why. Not that the attack was by Romulans. I'm saying the ships could still be Romulan. The reason being that, if you recall, I mentioned with one of the teasers, we can see the Borg cube that we assume is basically the base of operations for the Romulan experimentation on the Borg. We know that's going to be part of Star Trek Picard, is that the Romulans are experimenting on the Borg.
Right.
So we can see those triangle shaped ships that appear to be like guarding the Borg cube where the experimentation is going on. And my speculation is that what happened was the Romulans were basically doing experiments very much along the lines of what Laura was trying to do in Star Trek Next Generation. I think that's one of the reasons Hugh is also important and why Hugh is back. It's because what the Romulans were doing is trying to do what Laura was doing, which is sort of like combine the artificial Sung-type androids with Borg technology. And what they've done is created sort of a new race of synths. And these synths are sort of being enslaved by the Romulans. The Romulans obviously want to use them for their own purposes. And my speculation is that they stole a large amount of Romulan ships in some sort of uprising or revolt, and that's why they destroyed the rescue fleet. It's because obviously they're essentially at war with the Romulans, so they don't want them to be rescued. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's my speculation at this point, is that this rogue synth faction is obviously a Romulan experiment gone horribly wrong, and that now these guys hate the Romulans. They may even hate the Federation, but they certainly don't want the Federation to help the Romulans. So that's why I think it would make sense that they would attack them, especially attack the rescue fleet that was being built. And again, the thing that I'm really curious about is whether Geordi was there and he's dead, and that would be crazy, especially if they just do it off screen. It's just something referenced in the past, because we know in the Star Trek Picard timeline, Picard is no longer an admiral, he's retired.
Right.
This obviously occurs many years before, and it seems to align with the Countdown comic timeline. So this is pretty interesting. One other thing that I'll give a shout out to Starfleet Underground. They're a new podcast that just came out. I'm actually supposed to be on their show the week after Picard comes out. We're going to be talking about Star Trek Picard on that show as well. And they actually, one of the things they were talking about with this particular short trek was, are we going to see these two characters again grown up? Are these characters going to be relevant in Star Trek Picard? And are we going to see them, are one of these possibly part of Picard's new crew? Something along those lines, or will they be relevant later on? Will we see these two characters again grown up?
Right.
So I think that's kind of interesting as well. So but there was a lot. Apparently there was quite a bit in this short trek as far as stuff that relates to Star Trek Picard, and I'm pretty fascinated by it, especially if is Geordi dead? Is that part of why Picard left Starfleet? That would be crazy. That would be absolutely crazy if they did that, and we'll just have to see how they treat that, because I don't know. It's a big question mark for me. But apparently we do know more about these triangle ships and what threat they bring, which is apparently there is a new rival group. There is a new faction in town in the Star Trek Picard era, and that is the rogue synths.
Wow. So they're gonna go the Blade Runner route. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought Blade Runner for a bit too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's well, we'll see. Huh, okay. Yeah, I totally missed that. I'll be honest with you, I totally missed it. I caught Picard, commenting on it. I saw that, I recognized the planet, which is Mars, is the one from the trailer that's being destroyed. I know that's not the planet that we're following in Countdown. And then, of course, because of reading Countdown, we understand the significance of the ships that were under construction at the shipyards. And then, of course, because of the Countdown comic, we know that Geordi is there overseeing the construction of all those rescue ships. It's interesting, too, because, these things are so closely tied together. I can't imagine that they would throw away the idea that Geordi is there, because that would be like we started off talking about Data, that Data is, in the original Countdown comic, is the new captain of the Enterprise, and his memories have been transferred or activated within the B4 android body. They're not going to be. It's going to be more obvious that they're retconning this out if somehow Geordi is okay in the show later on. But we know he was there, and this attack obviously took place. And if they just don't address it, it leaves in our mind that Geordi must have died during that attack.
Obviously, he could have escaped. He could have not been there exactly when the attack occurred, or he could have just escaped.
Right.
And this could even lead to something later. He may be presumed dead, and he may show up. I've speculated, and I've given that hope that there's at least one more legacy character that we're going to see in the show that nobody's talked about. And
right.
if it's Geordi, that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see. But there are some definite implications for this short trek in terms of Star Trek Picard. And also, I'm more interested to see how the Countdown comic book resolves now, and see if they're going to address any of it.
Yeah, but no, yeah. Again, this is easily, of all the short treks I've watched, this is hands down the best one. It was very well produced. It was very interesting. I loved seeing, like I said, like a view of the Federation outside of Starfleet. I know eventually we're going to be getting tons of that because they're not in Starfleet and Picard, which bothers me. But this was fun. The other may grow a little old on me eventually. But no, it was very interesting. If you have CBS All Access, if you have not watched Children of Mars, I highly, highly recommend it. It's kind of required viewing in my mind, and leading up to Picard.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely agree.